Thank you, Speaker. It's not often that I get to participate in debate with you in the chair, so this is very exciting. Of course, I am happy to be here this morning to speak to this motion. As the House knows, I'm always eager to participate in debate. I'm passionate about the issues that are debated in this place on a daily basis, and I consider it a great privilege and an honour to participate at every opportunity, Mr. Speaker. My constituents elected me to come to this place and represent them. They did not send me here expecting me to be a bump on a log, and I work every day to live up to their expectations. This is the reason I mention this, Mr. Speaker, is because I know all members in this place feel the same obligations to their constituents. This legislature is a place of passion, thorough debate. One of the things that I'm most excited about are the many measures in these changes to the standing orders which will enhance debate and enhance participation, especially by our independent members, Mr. Speaker. We'll get into the many ways these changes to the standing orders will make this place work better, but first, I think we should talk about how we got to this point. Mr. Speaker, the Government House Leader has taken time to do this the right way. This is a collaborative and inclusive approach to modernizing the rules of this legislature. The Government House Leader reached out proactively to the opposition and to the independents in this place to make sure that we are updating the rules with an eye to fairness and genuine improvement of the way this place works. And let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, that consultation was a success. Many of these changes included in this motion originated with the independent members in this House. The independent members who sit in this chamber, no matter which political party they identify with, are here for the same reasons as a member of the Conservative Party, the NDP, my friends across the aisle. They want to positively affect change here in Ontario. Yes, of course, Mr. Speaker, we disagree probably fundamentally on the politics, and we have varying views of how this should be done, but when it comes down to it, we are all here to do our best to contribute proactively to our great province. Mr. Speaker, I wonder if the people of Ontario may not know the limits in the extent of this place. For example, when a government minister stands to make a formal statement in the legislature, right now independent members do not have an opportunity to split their time for a response. We are changing that, Mr. Speaker. We heard from our independent members, and we recognize that this is a unique parliament, with a particularly large number of members who are not part of recognized parties. And look, it's important to note what we are doing is formalizing. Right now, with unanimous consent, we know that in this House we can make exceptional accommodations, but we know that in this case the ability to participate should be predictable and consistent. I mentioned ministerial statements, Mr. Speaker. These are formal occasions for a government to express an opinion in this legislature, but there is more. We also have opposition motions. The opposition in here, in this place, get regular opportunities through the course of a legislative sitting to bring motions to this House and have them debated. Right now, opportunities for debate are not necessarily afforded to the independent members. If passed, this legislation will be changing that, Mr. Speaker. If this motion is passed, independent members will get a fair chance to participate here in this chamber, and I think that is a good thing, Mr. Speaker. Like I said earlier, we members who sit in this House have an obligation to our constituents to be active, engaged, and involved. While there are many ways to do that behind the scenes, Mr. Speaker, to have your words and opinions transcribed into Hansard and broadcasted, probably around the world, is an indelible contribution to our democracy. I know that when I stand here, the words I speak will be printed in the books which will be stored in our library and posted on the internet for as long as this province and country exist. That gives me great pride, Mr. Speaker. And as many of you here know, my father was also a member in this place. When I think that these very words, or the speech I gave last week, or may give next week, will sit printed forever next to the words of my father, Mr. Speaker, that means even more. I explain this because it is with that context that I consider the words I say in this House, and I know that my constituents will hear me, that my family will hear me, and they're actually watching right now, Mr. Speaker. I got a text a little bit earlier. Hi, Gemma. And I want them to be proud of what I stand up for here, and that it's honorable. But I'm just one member in this place, Mr. Speaker. We have colleagues in this House who also understand the importance of the words they speak here, except the extent to which they are allowed to participate is limited. Let's change that, Mr. Speaker. Let's recognize that this Parliament In this Parliament, we have 9 members who are not affiliated with a recognized party. I think those members should have more of an opportunity to participate in debate here. If passed, this motion would allow time for independent participation in debate on opposition day motions, debate on time allocation motions, enhanced participation in the estimates process, and enhanced participation in the committee process, and the simple ability to substitute for other independent members at committee if their schedules get a little too tight, Mr. Speaker. Now let me get to what I consider the most exciting changes for independent members. Question period, Mr. Speaker. While we can all argue about just about anything in question period, and we usually do, I think everyone in this place agrees it is the most passionate time of day in the legislature. Motions run high, there's heckling. Forgive me, Mr. Speaker, I think I can admit I've maybe heckled once or twice. But, Mr. Speaker, I think we both know that heckling does not come from a place of disrespect for this chamber, but it comes from passion. This is the same passion that got us all here. I promise I will try to hold myself back. I respect that our fellow members care much about what they have to say here, but they can't help it. Sometimes they also need to interject, Mr. Speaker. That is why I am excited that we are formalizing independent participation in question period, member statements, and private members' business. With these changes, Mr. Speaker, the legislature will allow 2 questions and supplementaries for independent members each day, as well as 1 member statement. The independent members of this place have much to contribute, and I am excited to see that will happen, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to mention to you as well, I'm not sure if I have to do this, but I may also be sharing my time with the member from Mississauga East Cooksville, I believe, Khalid Rashid. Quickly, what's your riding? What's your riding? Mississauga East Cooksville. In case I needed to do that, I'm not 100% sure. There are also changes proposed to participation in debate on private members' business. And I know you are aware, Mr. Speaker, but for the benefit of those watching us at home, private members' business is a very important part of this legislative procedure. I would say this is especially true for those members who are not part of Cabinet. Private members' business is the only opportunity for a member who is not a Minister of the Crown to directly propose legislation in this place. We go out into our communities, we speak to our constituents, and we develop and introduce legislation which is debated in this House and can pass into law. In October of last year, I introduced Bill 50, the Cutting Red Tape for Motor Vehicle Dealers Act. This bill serves to allow motor vehicle dealers to apply for permits, license plates, and complete various other applications online. I developed and tabled that bill, Mr. Speaker, because I know our small businesses and auto dealers spend their day trying to be productive and contribute to the economy, and that standing in line for something that could be ordered with the click of a mouse was not productive, Mr. Speaker. When I debated my private member's bill at second reading, I was very happy to have the support of the whole House and for it to pass, and we heard many passionate speeches from both sides of the aisle. But we did not hear from an independent member, Mr. Speaker. While I hope that the independent members in this place also supported my bill, I would have welcomed their comments and feedback during second reading debate. And if passed, Mr. Speaker, these changes to the standing orders will allow just that. While the independent members will not get quite as much time as a recognized party, they will have time to contribute productively and collaboratively, as I think all members of this House seek to do, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure in the coming debate, other members will highlight the many other positive changes this motion seeks to make. But there is one other item that I wanted to take the opportunity to discuss, Mr. Speaker. If these changes are accepted by this legislature, we will also be adding a new standing order. To summarize that, the Speaker may alter the application of any standing order of or practice of the House to permit the full participation in the proceedings of the House of any member with a disability, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our province has proudly advocated for the accommodation of people with disabilities. We have an entire piece of legislation dedicated to it, the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. In this place, if a member is elected who has a disability, the legislature must specifically and usually unanimously agree to provide that member with accommodations to allow them to fully participate in legislative business. Now, I know members in this place would not have an issue with making these kinds of accommodations, But I think in 2019, we need to provide special permission for an elected member of this place to do their job. Imagine a member who required an electronic device to assist them in speaking, or a member who required a person to provide medical assistance on an ongoing basis. These should not be things requiring special attention of this House. They should be left to the Speaker to ensure that all members have an equal opportunity and ability to participate. It should be left to the Speaker to decide which rules might need to be waived for a particular member, given their special needs. Mr. Speaker, if passed, this motion would allow that. It would bring the legislature into the 21st century, Mr. Speaker, and to say to all those Ontarians with a disability who are passionate about public service, nothing should hold you back. Certainly not a physical barrier or an outdated rule. Mr. Speaker, at this time, I move that the motion be amended by adding the following at the end. And I quote, "And that the terms of this motion shall come into force at 12:01 a.m. on Tuesday, February 18th, 2020, Mr. Speaker." Thank you.
Mr. Harris has moved that the motion be amended by adding the following at the end. Quote, "And that the terms of this motion shall come into force at 12:01 a.m. on Tuesday, February 18th, the year 2020. Debate on the motion. Back to Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Speaker. I just wanted to finish up by saying it has been an honour to be able to speak here, of course, in the House this morning, and looking forward to hear the continued debate on this. Thanks, Speaker.